Good morning, everyone. I'm Chris with the Westminster West Washita Chamber, and today is yet another awesome class, Small Business Academy, with our great friend Cameron with Square Planet. It's the third in our three-part series, but it looks like we might have another bonus episode coming up. And so we're really excited for this partnership. Each month, we try to give you a little bit of a teaser class, a little bit of insight into something that you can use in your daily corporate lives. If there's something that you'd really like us to present or a partnership you'd like for us to showcase, always let us know. We're always looking for ideas. You're welcome to put any comments that you have, questions in the chat, or just speak up. No question is a bad question in these things. If you have if you have to leave early or something, we are recording and we'll share that with the entire list. So, Cameron, uh, tell us what's in store today.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Chris. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. So today I'm really excited to talk about Microsoft Forms and Microsoft Lists. So we're specifically talking about being able to gather feedback using some of the tools that you probably already have in place today. If you are part of the Microsoft 365 ecosystem, if you've already got that subscription, again, you already have access to these tools. So again, we just want to help you leverage more capability out of the tools and subscriptions that you're already paying for. So part of that is going to be Microsoft Forms, gathering feedback, sending polls, surveys, even online quizzes with Microsoft Forms, and then also tracking important tasks with Microsoft Lists. So that's going to be very useful individually. It can be useful in a team setting if you're trying to track tasks across a team and maybe track status of projects and things like that. So that's what we're talking about today. Just a quick kind of overview of Microsoft Forms before we look at our demo. Again, being able to collect feedback from people. You can have a graded quiz even if you need to send somebody a form to collect some information and upload an attachment. Maybe they need to send a document to you. You can collect that through Microsoft Forms. It's really easy. Anybody can do it. They've got some great themes, kind of out of the box pre-built themes that are kind of fun, even some animated themes there. Or you can use your own if you want to use your own branding, logos, colors, things like that. And Microsoft Forms is really easy to share. So you can send somebody a link to the form. Forms can even generate a QR code for you. It's something that you could embed on your current website. So there's a lot of ways to get that form out there to be able to collect that information or share that quiz or get that poll data. And then of course, Microsoft Forms integrates with other tools in the Microsoft suite that we've already talked about, like Microsoft Bookings. So we kind of teased that last time when we talked about that, but being able to include a form when somebody submits, to book a time on your calendar and being able to automatically send them a link to that form to get that additional information that'll be useful before you have that meeting. You can do that with Microsoft Forms. And so, of course, it works on the web, it works on mobile, which is super important these days. Not everybody's in front of a computer. So yeah, that's what we're going to start with. So we'll hop right into our demo here. If you get into Microsoft Forms, I've got a couple of pre-built forms here, but you can see that it's kind of a drag and drop, very easy to use. I'm going to hop into one of the forms that I built here in preparation for the conversation today, and I'm just going to preview it here. And so this particular form is actually a quiz. So you can have a right or wrong answer. You can score that. You can choose to display that on the fly. And we're going to go ahead and get through this. And I just have two questions here, followed by a spot that you could collect an email address. So our first quiz question is, how many members does the West Monroe West Washita Chamber of Commerce currently have? We're going to show less than 75. I hope I'm wrong, but that's what we're going to choose here.
Yes, I'm encouraging you to be wrong. Yeah,
Yeah,
go for it.
hope I'm wrong, but we're going to select that. And then two, where's the chamber located? And I think it's on Professional Drive. I don't think the chamber's on the moon, and I don't think y'all are in Rayville. So I'm going to go with Professional Drive. And I'm just going to enter my email address here and click submit. And so I've submitted that form. On the back end, Microsoft Forms has collected that information. It'll show me all the results here in a minute on the back end. But me, as the person submitting the form, I can view the results. And you can see that the first question, I was wrong. In fact, the feedback is wrong, thank goodness. We have more than 75 members. So you can really actually even customize the feedback that's provided here when somebody chooses an answer, whether it's right or wrong. On the back end here, when we look at this form, we can actually view the responses here, and it'll basically aggregate all of the results in a really nice dashboard format. So you can see this form here has 3 responses. The average score is 50, so it seems like we need to maybe improve awareness for the chamber. But if we look at here, we can look at each individual question, what the responses are. It gives us an option to download this data into Excel. So if you want to use that to import into another tool, or you want to further analyze that, all of that data is there. You can also review the answers and look at one by one the response. It'll even show you the time it took someone to complete your form. So really useful information there that you can see sending out a form using Microsoft Forms. I mentioned too that there's some really cool kind of out of the box themes built into forms. So I'm just going to click here. We're going to build a new form right quick. And we might call this local attractions survey. And you can see as we're typing that in, you might notice on the right-hand side here, based on the words that I'm using for the name of the form, Microsoft Forms is actually suggesting certain pre-built themes and pre-built styles using intelligence there. So I mentioned that there are pre-built themes. We can just click on one here in preview. We can go through and see some of the different options, some really nice photos. Of course, too, we can choose our own branding. We can choose our own backgrounds, logos, and things like that. But we're just going to pick one here. And then it's really easy to add questions. So we just add new. You get several different types of form inputs to choose from. So you can give somebody a choice, and that could be a single choice or a multiple choice option. So we might say, where do you live? And the option might be Monroe, West Monroe, or other. We can give somebody the chance to choose other, and they could enter their information there. We can choose whether or not this is a required field. So you can force somebody to enter feedback there. If you want to allow multiple answers, that turns these into check boxes instead of only allowing one selection. It can allow multiple selections, but we don't want to do that. And then we might say rank your favorite attractions. So rank your. It's actually select the right one here. Let's do a ranking. Rank your favorite Monroe attractions. And so we might have the zoo. We might have Biedenharn Museum. Stuff there. And maybe we might have Chennault Aviation Museum. And then let's say, let's give some options for West Monroe. And let's maybe just say, what's your favorite West Monroe park? And maybe we'll put Caroli Park and Restoration Park in there. Now you'll notice here, this is a ranking, and I'll show you what that looks like in a minute. And this right here is a selection, so you can only choose one option, what's your favorite. But you might not want to show all questions to all people, because if you live in Monroe, well, then maybe you don't want to collect any information about their favorite West Monroe park. So that's where we can use what's called branching. And if you click in this option, based on what they select for this question here, we can choose where to send them next. So for instance, we're going to add a branch. And if they choose Monroe, then we're going to select the Monroe question. If they choose West Monroe, we're going to select the West Monroe location. And then other, we can go next. And so based on that information, now we're going to just preview here. So here's what somebody will see when you send them a link to fill out your form. Based on whatever branding you've chosen, you can add additional information. We're just going to start now. So you'll see here, where do you live? Monroe. If I choose Monroe, then I'll get the Monroe related questions, and I can rank these in order of least to most favorite, most to least favorite. And then if I choose West Monroe, maybe I don't see the option for the Monroe ranking. Maybe I just choose which is my favorite park in West Monroe, and I can submit that. And you'll see that's super easy. It only took us a couple of minutes to build that survey, add those questions in there, and send that out. The other thing I mentioned is there's several ways to use Microsoft Forms. So once you've built your form out and you select collect responses, you'll see that you have some options. You can allow this form to be open to the public. Anyone can respond. If you've got maybe a large team and you want this to be an internal form, maybe an internal survey, you can limit it to the people within your own Microsoft 365 organization. Or you can even limit it to specific people within the organization. You can name those people. And then Forms will create a link automatically that you can use to send out in an email or post on social media. You can copy that here. You can even automatically send an email out or a Teams message out from within this interface. Forms will also generate a QR code for you, so you can download that and use that to share on social media or send to somebody. That all happens automatically. And then finally, too, you can also embed this form on your website. So if you are like me, I like to have as much within our website as possible without directing people to a third-party site. So I might create a page on our website with this form in it. I can use this code here to embed that form, and people will be able to view that form and submit it without ever leaving our website. So those are the different ways that you can share that form to collect those responses. And just before I go forward, do we have any other questions on that? Okay. As I mentioned too, you can allow people to upload responses as well. So if you need to collect documents from someone, maybe in that survey that we created here, and here's a different variation of that survey that I have set up. You'll see these animated themes that you can choose. And again, there's several built-in animated themes that you can pick from. Kind of cool. Again, you can use your own branding, or you can use a pre-built theme when you're creating this form. But you can add an upload. So let's just say we want to allow somebody to upload some photos or maybe a document. You can just choose this upload file option here. You can limit the number of files and the size of files that people upload. And then when they upload that, that'll be available in those results. Moving on for Microsoft Forms, the other topic we wanted to talk through today is Microsoft Lists. And so using Microsoft Lists, it's a very powerful tool to be able to track information either for yourself or if you're in a team setting, if you want to track project tasks, if you want to track survey results, maybe you have some follow-up items for everyone that submits a survey in Microsoft Form. Maybe you want to reach out to them individually and follow up with them. So you could use Microsoft List to track that. It's easy to use, just like Forms, kind of a drag and drop builder, easy to click through. There's some great pre-built templates for certain task types, and I'll show you some of that here in a minute. But then everything is customizable too. Of course, there are integrations with some of the other tools that we talked about in our Small Business Academy series here, tools like Microsoft Teams. So you can use Microsoft Teams, as we talked about, as a one-stop shop for all of the information for your business. You can access your list items directly within Teams on your phone and on the web. So moving into Microsoft Lists here, we've got a couple of pre-built lists, and you can see if we were to create a new one, there's some really great templates that we could use to get started. Things like a recruitment tracker, things like maybe an expense tracker or certain issues. Maybe you want to track your employee onboarding process. So very powerful for that. I'm going to show you here just a demo that we have work progress tracker here. And basically, this is just a list of items that we've created. We've got certain categories that we want to use to categorize the type of task that we are tracking here. We can track the progress, we can track the priority. In this particular example, we have a start and a due date. So in other words, we don't want to start this task before a certain day, and we want to make sure that it's done by a certain day. So we can track those types of things in here. We can add descriptions. We can make sure the task is assigned to someone. If we're working in a team setting, maybe we've got 2 or 3 people in a particular department that need to track certain tasks. And sometimes tracking those things like in an email is just not very efficient. Having a single list that everyone can access and see progress can really help to increase the efficiency there. So, and it's really easy when you have a list like this built to add a new item. You can just add a new item. Let's say, we want to track and make sure that we publish our social media post this week. We can add that here. If we need to add a description of the task to provide some more detail or context, we can do that. We can choose to categorize that. So this is going to be a marketing task. Progress, well, I haven't started that yet, and truthfully, I'm a little behind, so we can mark it as that. We can assign it a priority. So this is going to be a medium priority for us. I want to make sure that we start this, say by Monday, the 13th, and let's make sure that it's complete by the end of the week on the 17th. And I'm just going to assign this task to Deborah here. So you can see I can start searching for Deborah's name. Deborah is within our organization. We can pick that name there, and that'll be assigned to her. So I can later filter on the things that are assigned to a certain person, or maybe you're within a certain category. I can also add some internal notes. And then even if I need to attach some documents, maybe some photos, I can also do that here and click save. So now in our list, everyone who has access to this list can see real time, a live view of the items and kind of where we're at, where we stand with this. Do we have any questions so far?
So Cameron, we actually used that for the first time in the last couple of weeks for St. Patty's Day that's coming up and some other things. And it was great because we could reach out across organizations too. And all those files were there inside that task. It's been super handy to keep multiple people across multiple groups enlightened. And what I loved was it sent me emails like, oh, by the way, your critical task was overdue. It's helpful to keep you on track.
You covered something, you kind of teased something there that I hadn't mentioned yet, but you're absolutely right. Expanding on the power of Microsoft Lists and some of these other tools, you can definitely incorporate other things like email reminders. So when you've got that due date coming up, let's say it's going to be due in 3 days and you want to make sure you don't miss it, you could schedule an email to be sent automatically to remind you of that. Hey, this isn't done. This is still in progress, or it's not complete. So definitely that. It also works well, again, if you've got multiple people in a team, maybe you've got 2 or 3 customer service representatives and everybody's kind of responding to everything at once. You can use Microsoft Lists to keep everything in that consolidated list that everybody has access to in real time and can see the status of.
Does this integrate at all with like Microsoft To Do?
It's kind of a similar premise with Microsoft To Do. The difference is Microsoft To Do is really more for like a personal task list, and this here can be expanded to teams. This is a little more expandable than To Do in that you can add custom columns here and you can track different things. So I'll show you right quick. Back to our work progress tracker. Let's say that we need, trying to think of something that we would maybe need to assign here, maybe something we would need to track. It's really easy to add additional information. So for instance, let's say we need to track a budget for this particular item. It's really easy to go in here and we can add a column. Let's say we're going to choose a number and we're going to put budget here. We're going to choose that this is currency. So it'll format it correctly. And we want 2 decimal places. And so I'm going to save that here. So now you can see in this column, just like that, we were able to add a budget. And so within this particular task, let's just open that up right quick. we'll say to develop our training program, our budget's going to be $3,500 here, and save that. And so you see, we can track more information other than just tasks to do. We can track information about the task and give it more context. Does that answer your question?
Yes. Can you change the view of this to maybe like a calendar view?
That's a great question. You absolutely can. And I don't have any additional views set up here, but you can absolutely build additional views based on those calendar dates, and it'll display these things on a calendar if you wanted to show it by due date, for instance. You can also build views that limit what you see based on, say, the progress or the priority. So that obviously, if you've got a list of several hundred items, probably at the end of the day, you don't really care about those completed items most of the time. So you can build a view that will only show you tasks that have not been completed, for example. Or maybe you have a view that would only show you marketing tasks. The other powerful feature is, even within this view that shows us everything, we can easily filter by any of these fields. So let's say I just want to see only the tasks that are not started. I can just apply that filter right quick, and in real time, I can only see those items. And then when I want to see everything else, I can just choose to clear that filter. Excellent question. Any additional questions?
So, and Cameron just mentioned, for us, we use it in the Teams app. You're showing it in the web browser version. And the nice thing about in Teams, well, for us that integrates, is that you can have recurring tasks. Like every Friday, I have to fill in the blank. And you can apply those same features over and over again, that the files are integrated and everything. So to Sheila's point, you know, I look at it in calendar view all the time in my, but in the Teams app.
Right. Yeah, that's an excellent question. And I just wanted to call out too, in this particular scenario, these are all custom columns. So this is just what I chose to build out for our demo here today. But you know, definitely think of this as how you can apply this to track your internal processes. It's totally custom. So you can choose to upload images here. Maybe you track a location. If you want to put links, you know, if you have a different system that you need a link to, you can do that. Check boxes for something that's been done or not. You know, all of the coloring and icons, all that stuff is customizable. Again, this is just what we've got here for this example, but it really is truly custom. There's some great out of the box templates, but you can also just build something from scratch to fit your needs. And all of these views are, again, customizable. You can have it automatically filter on certain things. You can build views that are shared across the entire team, or they can be private just to you. There's a lot of different ways that you can build it out and expand it. The other thing there too is I just wanted to call out that it works great on mobile too. So like Chris said, certainly it works within the Teams app. You know, any of your mobile devices, you're able to see the exact same information. I formatted it how you formatted how you'd like to see it there across the web and mobile. And if you want to access Microsoft Lists, if you've already got a Microsoft 365 account, you can either visit this URL or scan that QR code, and that'll take you directly into your own Microsoft Lists environment where you can get started today. You can get logged in and start creating lists. The last thing I want to talk about here is you might be asking, how can I supercharge this? How can I make this even more valuable and even more powerful? Well, Chris alluded to it earlier with things like automatic reminders via email. There's so much that you can do with tools like Microsoft Power Automate, which is actually going to be the topic of next month's webinar. So make sure you get registered for that. I'm going to show you a quick example of one way you might use Microsoft Power Automate to connect certain tools like Microsoft Forms and Microsoft Lists. So in our example earlier, we built a survey. And let's say that your internal process within your business, for every time somebody submits a survey, let's say you want to have that touch point, you want to follow up with them directly, maybe to get additional feedback, maybe to just thank them for taking a few minutes to submit a response. One way to track that easily is by using Microsoft Power Automate to connect forms and lists. And I'm going to show you a quick example of that right now. We're going to pull up our survey follow-up list right here. And you see I've got a couple of test items in here. But let's say we have somebody that goes in and elects to complete the survey. So they're going to go answer the question that you have here. They're going to, tell you what they agree with or disagree with. Maybe they're going to give you some additional feedback. Thanks for a great training. They're going to provide their information and their email address, and you'll get a notification that they submitted the form. But that doesn't really help you in the way of tracking whether or not you've followed up with that person, right? Especially if you've got 2 or 3 people who are processing tasks like that, it might be hard to track who's taking care of that or if it's been done. So if we look in our Microsoft lists here, we're tracking survey follow-ups. So for every time somebody submits a survey, we're going to make sure that we follow up with them. We're going to have that touch point, whether that's via phone, maybe via email. And we want to make sure that somebody from our team reaches out to follow up with that. So you'll see here, now that somebody has submitted that form, I'm just going to refresh our list right here. Automatically, I have a new list item in here that added the information from that Microsoft form into this list, so somebody in our team can follow up with. And you'll see I included automatically the name of the person, the feedback that they provided, and we automatically put that in a pending status, and we see what time they submitted that form. And so now, whoever's processing these tasks on our team can go through and say, hey, I've got this new pending item. We want to make sure that we follow up with this person. Once we do that, we'll maybe put them in a contacted status and know that it's been taken care of. So certain things like that is just a little tip of the iceberg of some of the things that you can do in Microsoft Power Automate to integrate some of these tools that we've been talking about together and really make you that much more efficient. So based on that, do we have any more questions?
Hey, Cameron, so can I have a form that's like maybe collecting information, but it never expires? Can it just be sitting on my website indefinitely?
Absolutely. Yeah, and there are definitely options to choose whether or not a form is only available for a certain time. You can leave it open indefinitely. Again, we talked about ways that you can open that up to the public, or again, if you get a large internal organization, maybe you want to only let internal, maybe it's an internal survey for your team members. Maybe you want to limit that. There are definitely options out there to do that. There's also something that's important too. Microsoft Forms is multilingual, so you can choose to have different language versions of your form based on the language of the person that's completing it. So something to note there too.
And I would just kind of brag on Microsoft Forms in another way. You mentioned earlier uploading files. Something that I have found really handy is that ends up in OneDrive, and I can share that folder with a bunch of collaborators so that if we're working on a video project or whatever, raw file is being updated and submitted through this form by the general public, but my collaborator group has access to the folder where the files go. And that's
right.
been super handy.
Yeah. That's the thing, with
and
all of this, we want to make sure that, instead of sending copies of stuff out, it's so much easier if everybody can work on the same information in real time. So exactly what you said, versus sending different copies of a document out, everyone having access to that same, master copy of the document and looking at the same thing at the same time.
That's been super handy. Yeah.
Is there a way to develop a quiz that is kind of like a fun quiz? So like if, you wanted to, for example, like some of those BuzzFeed quizzes where it's like at the end, like what kind of sandwich you are.
That's a good question. Right now, the quiz functionality is mostly limited to like a traditional grading quiz. So you can assign point values and have a right or wrong answer, or maybe multiple right answers. But no, to do what you're talking about there, right now it's really more limited to like a traditional graded quiz.
Okay.
Good question. Thank you. Anyone else?
Some of the survey programs I've used before have like a max amount of surveys that can go into it before it's not going to show you the results anymore. Does this have like a max, or can it show you a mass amount of answers?
No, it's a great question. Yeah, there's no limit to the number of responses you can get. And again, because you're already paying for Microsoft 365 subscription, you're essentially already paying for access to this service where, some of the services like you're talking about, maybe a free, the free license will only give you access to a certain number of responses, or maybe you have to upgrade your license to a higher tier to have more than one response, or, more than 50 responses or whatever. Microsoft Forms doesn't have that limitation. It's already included in the subscription that you're paying for. Anyone else?
And I'll mention one more thing. You talked about downloading the data, let's say to Microsoft Excel. If you save that in OneDrive, my experience has been that it constantly keeps dumping the data there. And so like you could have Collaborator, and again, everybody's got the latest version of everything all the time. So it's been really a game changer for us. Well, Cameron, thank you so much. And your information is on the screen, and we thank you for this 3-part series, and we're going to maybe have another bonus series on Power Automate next month. If anybody has any last minute questions, now's your chance. Otherwise, we will share the recording of today's presentation for Small Business Academy with the entire group. And we hope that you have an awesome day. Hey, by the way, St. Patty's Day is this Saturday at Crowley Park, so come and hang out with us. Anybody have a last minute question? No? All right, thanks, Cameron. We appreciate you, as always, for sharing your deep knowledge of how to take the best advantage of Microsoft Office. And we look forward to visiting with you again soon.